Marcus Thompson settles into his window seat on flight 472 to Atlanta, filled with excitement and relief as his summer break at college is over, and he cannot wait to see his family again. He glances out at the clouds drifting below like islands of cotton and closes his eyes for just a moment, savoring the gentle hum of the engines that promise homecoming. A soft knock at his shoulder interrupts his daydream, and Marcus opens his eyes to see a flight attendant standing there, her smile polite, but her gaze shifting nervously. "Sir, the captain needs you off the aircraft for questioning," she says, her voice steady and professional, but the edge of tension in her tone makes Marcus's heart flippy. Frowns and shakes his head, questioning about what he asks, voice trembling with confusion. The flight attendant glances toward the cockpit before leaning in lower voice. "There's a report of suspicious behavior linked to your ticket." Marcus's pulse races as he shakes his head harder. "I don't understand. I've done nothing wrong." A few rows back, a murmured hush spreads through the cabin, and curious eyes turn toward him. His seatmate gulps visibly, and the bright summer sunlight streaming through the window seems to burn his cheeks red. He stands, slowly, palms open in a gesture of innocence, trying to stay calm, but inside adrenaline courses. Passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats as cabin lights flicker overhead. The flight attendant gestures down the aisle. "Sir, please come with me." Marcus hesitates, then stands, the soles of his shoes brushing against the smooth aisle carpet. He swallows hard and follows her down the narrow walkway, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. As they reach the galley, the flight crew watches from behind curtained doors. A uniformed man peers at Marcus through a small window on the cockpit door before stepping out. He is tall, with a clean-shaven head and a badge clipped to his belt. "Security officer, sir, your ticket matched an alert for prohibited items on board. Please step aside," he says, pointing toward the exit door. Marcus's breath catches in his throat as a knot of dread forms in his stomach. He looks back at the cabin and sees his fellow students shifting uneasily. A mother clutching her child stares at him wide-eyed, and an elderly couple exchange worried glances. He feels their judgment in every stare, as if their eyes could burn through his skin. With trembling legs he steps toward the exit, his mind races. Searching for an explanation, he pats every pocket of his backpack. Nothing but textbooks and a laptop charger. He glances at his boarding pass again. Flight 472 to Atlanta, seat 1 for A. Everything seems normal, but he can feel something wrong tightening around him like a noose. He steps outside the aircraft onto the jet bridge, and the glare of the terminal lights forces him to squint. The security officer escorts him to a small area behind a rope barrier where a few airport personnel gather. One checks her tablet as another speaks quietly into a walkie-talkie. Marcus stands alone, hands shaking at his sides. He tries to speak, but the words catch in his throat. "Sir, your presence is required for questioning about an alleged security violation." The officer's tone leaves no room for argument. Marcus nods mutely and follows them down the hallway. His stomach churns with shame and fear as they round a corner. Marcus sees a tall figure approaching. His heart leaps and then drops. It is his father, David Thompson, in a tailored suit, his posture calm and authoritative. He strides through the crowd, flanked by two assistants, carrying leather briefcases. At the sight of Marcus, his assistants step back to give space, and David's eyes lock onto his son's trembling form. He pauses only for a heartbeat before marching forward through the small group of staff. Marcus's throat goes dry as his father reaches him. David places a hand on Marcus's shoulder, steadying him. "What's going on here?" he demands, voice low, but carrying the power of command. The security officer straightens and salutes. "Mr. Ticton, sir, your son's ticket triggered a security alert. We need to verify identification and investigate further." David's gaze narrows, and he turns to the officer, his face calm but fierce. "My son is a college student and a citizen, Mr. Jackson," he says, pinpointing the officer by name. "You will clear up this misunderstanding immediately, or answer to my office." The officer glances at his tablet, then back at David. "Sir, the alert was entered under the name Marcus Thompson and flagged by our system as potential risk." David's lips press together before he turns to Marcus' son. "Did you notice anything unusual when you booked your flight?" he asks quietly. Marcus shakes his head. Tears of frustration prickle his eyes. "No, Dad. I just logged on to the airline app, entered my student discount info, and paid with my card. I never saw any warning or message before board." Turns back to the officer, his voice cold with controlled anger. "I will have your system logs emailed to my security team in the next hour." and I expect a full explanation by then. In the meantime, you will allow my son to reboard or accompany us off-site for verification under escort of my security detail." The officer hesitates, then blinks awareness at the senior executive standing before him. "Sir, if you provide identification and evidence that the alert was erroneous, we can lift the hold." David nods to Marcus. "Show him your student ID and your boarding pass," he says. Marcus fishes in his jacket pocket and pulls out his university ID and his boarding pass. He hands them over, shaking. The officer scans them on his tablet and his jaw tightens. "Sir, I am sorry. It appears you were flagged by error. The database entry shows a similar name to an individual under investigation. We will clear this immediately." David nods curtly. "Good," said he. "My son has been unduly humiliated by this mistake, and I expect an apology from the staff and compensation for the delay." The officer bows his head slightly. "Yes, sir, we will facilitate that." David turns and offers his arm to Marcus. "Are you okay, son?" Marcus forces a shaky smile. "I'm fine, Dad, just embarrassed." David gives his son's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "We'll get this sorted, and you'll still make your trip by nightfall." He then nods to the officer. "Let's go back to the aircraft." They walk side by side toward the plane. Marcus glances around at the silent jet bridge, transforming from a place of shame to a path toward justice. He draws in a steadying breath. He knows this is only the beginning of something much larger. The cabin door closes behind them, and Marcus takes his seat once more. His father stands in the aisle, his presence a shield. Marcus exhales as the engines roar back to life. He grips his armrest, bracing for takeoff, his heart still racing but fueled by a new fire. Inside him, the flight resumes its course across the sky. But Marcus cannot shake the sting of humiliation or the rising determination to uncover how his name triggered that alert. The journey home has become far more than a vacation trip now. It has become a quest for truth and dignity, and as the plane climbs above the clouds, Marcus steels himself for the battles to come. The world will hear his story, and no system glitch or prejudice will stand in his way. Marcus sits rigid in his seat, his father's voice still echoing in the small cabin as he stares at the flight attendant who stands frozen by the galley curtain. David's tailored suit cuts an authoritative line against the muted airline uniforms around him as he steps forward to claim his son's innocence. The crew exchanges uneasy glances, and a young attendant clears her throat before speaking in a voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Sir, we are deeply sorry for the misunderstanding, but our system only flagged a security alert under a similar name." David's eyes flash with controlled fire as he turns to Marcus. "You heard them explain what triggered this ordeal," he says quietly. Marcus breathes in slow, his chest rising with relief at his father's calm strength. "They will fix this mistake right now." The head flight attendant approaches, clipboard in hand, her posture stiff like a soldier at parade rest. "Mr. Thompson, sir, we apologize for the distress caused, but our policy requires verification before clearing any alert." David steps closer, bringing the clipboard into his line of sight, inspecting the printed procedures with the precision of a seasoned executive. He notes the clause about security protocols and the fine print that allows them discretion under vague criteria. "My son is not a risk," he declares, voice low yet resonant enough to still the murmurs around them. He turns toward the cabin windows, as if addressing every passenger in turn. "You will review your decision and allow my son to complete his journey without further delay in the cabin." Marcus feels a swell of support as a few passengers nod and murmur their agreement. A woman in the row ahead offers him a sympathetic smile, and a man across the aisle leans forward, giving him an encouraging thumbs up. These small gestures restore a sense of hope in Marcus's chest, replacing the shame and humiliation with a spark of solidarity. Back at the galley, the attendant swipes on her tablet and curses quietly under her breath. "Sir, it appears the alert was generated by a named Marcus J. Thompson instead of Marcus L. Thompson," they say, offering confirmation at last. David's lips curl into a tight expression before he nods once in acknowledgement. "Thank you for resolving this," he says. Curtly, Marcus draws in a shaky breath and stands straighter, his shoulders rolling back as he feels the weight lift from his chest. His father places a reassuring hand on his arm, guiding him to return to his seat. Their footsteps echo softly down the aisle as the cabin resumes its quiet routine. Once seated, David engages the captain over the headset, insisting a formal apology be offered on the PA system. Moments later, the captain's voice fills the cabin with regret. This is Captain Rodriguez. We apologize for any inconvenience caused by the security alert on Flight 472. Marcus Thompson, Seat 14A, is cleared for travel, and we regret the misunderstanding. A few tentative claps ripple through the cabin, and Marcus lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He locks eyes with his father across the aisle and sees pride shining in David's gaze. It is the first time this summer that Marcus feels truly seen as the flight climbs again into the sky. Marcus recalls every second of the ordeal from the cold, not of fear. When he stepped off the plane to the rush of vindication when his name was cleared. He knows this incident is not just a clerical error, it carries echoes of a world where a name can become a weapon against an innocent teenager, and he feels the first stirrings of purpose. His father leans closer. "We will investigate how and why this happened and ensure it never happens again," he whispers. Marcus nods, pressing his palm over his racing heart. Its beats slowed now, but still echoing with determination across the cabin. The lights dim for dinner service, but Marcus sees only the glow of new resolve in his own mind. He unzips his backpack and retrieves his laptop, opening it to draft an email to his father's security team. He will insist they obtain system logs, flight manifests and database entries to uncover the source of the mistake. Emotions swirl inside him: frustration, pride, fear, and an emerging anger at the faceless algorithms that judged him without cause. He types with purpose, each keystroke a promise to himself and to other young travelers who might face similar injustice. As the hum of conversation drifts around him, Marcus allows himself a small smile. This flight has become a turning point, not only in his journey home, but in his journey toward making a difference. By the time the landing lights of Atlanta Airport appear below, he has outlined the first steps of a campaign that could transform airline security practices for good. And as the wheels touch the runway, Marcus's heart soars higher than the plane ever could, fueled by the belief that his story will not end with this flight. It is only the beginning. Marcus wakes before dawn in his childhood bedroom, sunlight slanting through the curtains as he replays every moment of the flight in his mind. His chest still tight with indignation and resolve, he sits at his desk, laptop open, and tapping his fingers on the keys as lines of code and flight manifest details blur on the screen. His focus sharpening on uncovering the truth behind the flag. In the security database, he begins by drafting an email to his father's head of security, outlining the need for raw system logs, passenger name records, and any matching entries under variants of his name. Aware that every keystroke draws him closer to a world of bureaucratic opacity and hidden biases, he sends the message, then leans back in his chair, closing his eyes for a heartbeat before opening them again to stare at the empty screen, waiting for the first reply that could either confirm a simple clerical error or expose a more insidious pattern. By mid-morning, his phone buzzes with a response, confirming that the airline has granted temporary access to their audit server under strict confidentiality, a rare concession born of his father's influence, yet carrying the weight of immense responsibility. He thanks the security team and arranges a video conference with an airline IT manager who will guide him through the encrypted logs and redacted files. Later that afternoon, Marcus sits before the flickering glow of a secure connection, the airline manager's face appearing in a small window as he navigates folders labeled with dates, flight numbers, and cryptic codes. Line by line, they trace the entry that triggered the alert. An automated name-matching algorithm flagged Marcus J. Thompson as similar to Marcus J. a person of interest in an unrelated security probe. Marcus's heart sinks at the realization that a single stray letter had caused the uproar. Yet his relief is tempered by the knowledge that algorithms wield unchecked power over innocent lives. He asks pointed questions about the threshold settings, the criteria for manual review, and the logs that record human overrides. The manager hesitates before admitting that discretion rests with a handful of staff who rarely receive diversity training and rely on gut instincts when algorithms generate alerts. Marcus feels a surge of anger at the thought of faceless operators making life-altering decisions without oversights. As the sun dips below the horizon, Marcus's father returns home from the office and finds his son sprawled over the dining table, papers and tablets scattered like evidence at a crime scene. David studies the spreadsheets and annotated screenshots, nodding thoughtfully as Marcus walks him through the algorithm's pitfalls and the human factors that exacerbate them. They speak late into the night, voices hushed yet intense, mapping a plan to compile a comprehensive report that exposes the loopholes, presents statistical analyses of false positives, and recommends safeguards to prevent future injustices. Marcus's pulse quickens with excitement at the prospect of turning personal humiliation into systemic reform. In the following days, he reaches out to a friend from the computer science department, a talented coder named Aisha, who specializes in data ethics. Together, they write scripts to simulate the airline's matching algorithm against public name databases, demonstrating how common surnames and initials could produce thousands of false alerts daily. They create charts showing disproportionate impacts on minority travelers, drawing on open data from the Transportation Security Administration. As Part 3 of his investigation unfolds, Marcus also revisits his own experiences, recounting moments of prejudice in campus housing and local community centers, weaving them into a narrative that humanizes the statistics. He drafts a blog post titled, "When My Name Became a Threat," his fingers flying across the keyboard as he balances technical detail with emotional honesty, aiming to reach both policymakers and everyday readers by the end of the week. The draft report stands at 30 pages, brimming with evidence, personal testimony, and concrete recommendations. Marcus reads it aloud to his father in the living room, pacing back and forth, refining the language until every sentence pulses with clarity and purpose. David listens, pride evident in his calm demeanor, then places a hand on Marcus's shoulder and says with quiet confidence that they will present this to the airline board and the press that evening. Marcus posts an excerpt of his blog with a link to a secure server hosting the full report, his heart pounding as he hits publish. Aware that the world may respond with praise or backlash, he watches the view count climb, and the first comments appear, some supportive, some skeptical, some outraged on his behalf. Each reaction fuels his determination, reminding him that his story has transcended a single flight and become a catalyst for broader change. Marcus wakes to the glare of morning headlines flooding his phone screen as video clips of his removal from Flight 472 loop endlessly across news channels, social media feeds, and talk show panels, each thumbnail more damning than the last, and each comment section a battleground for outrage and opinion. The video recorded by a passenger reveals the flight attendant's tense expression, the abrupt gesture toward the aisle, and Marcus stepping off the plane surrounded by wary stares and hushed whispers that echo like thunder across the internet. Within hours, the hashtag Justice for Marcus trends worldwide, and news crews descend on the Thompson residence, capturing David and Marcus as they leave for a scheduled interview at the network's downtown studio. Inside the sleek glass building, David steers Marcus through the maze of cameras, microphones, and bright lights with the precision of a seasoned executive determined to control the narrative before it spirals beyond their reach. Marcus sits beside his father on the plush interview set and faces the anchor's questions with a steady gaze, his voice strong despite the emotional swirl inside him as he describes the humiliation of being treated like a suspect simply because of a system. Erathbazens, watch as he recounts the fear coursing through him when he first stepped off the aircraft, and the weight of dozens of eyes burning into his back with judgment fueled by algorithms and unchecked prejudice. Meanwhile, David outlines the steps their team has taken to investigate the false alert and demands the airline admit fault, implement better oversight, and offer reparations, not only to his son but to every traveler who might suffer similar harm. Back at home, a flurry of donations pours into a newly created fund to support victims of wrongful security profiling, and Marcus's blog post, "When My Name Became a Threat," surges to the top of trending topics, drawing thousands of shares, sympathetic stories, and calls for reform. Yet, even as the public rallies, Marcus feels the strain of sudden fame, the glare of cameras, the swirl of comments, some sympathetic, some scathing, and his own desire for privacy battled by his growing conviction that his story must be told. At the airline's headquarters, executives watch the crisis unfold on large monitors and scramble to draft statements that shift blame to technical glitches and staff discretion, but fail to calm the storm of public anger sweeping across forums and comment threads. In the midst of the outcry, Marcus receives a private message from Aisha's friend, Leo, the young attendant, who inadvertently triggered the alert. Instead of hiding behind fear, he steps forward, admitting in a heartfelt email that he saw Marcus's name flag and panicked, fearing reprisal from supervisors whose bias he did not challenge. Leo's confession lands like a thunderbolt in Marcus's inbox, and he reads, the words trembling, as he realizes that behind the algorithm stands a human heart, gripped by fear and prejudice. He shares Leo's message with his father, who studies it and nods in solemn agreement that addressing algorithmic errors alone is not enough. They must also reform human judgment and training within. Days the airline announces a partnership with Marcus and his father to overhaul staff training, implement transparent audit trails, and invite third-party oversight in a landmark agreement hailed as a blueprint for jazz. Part 4 draws to a close. Marcus steps onto the balcony of his childhood home overlooking the city lights and breathes in the night air, his heart heavy with the weight of responsibility, yet buoyed by the knowledge that his ordeal has sparked a movement far greater than himself. He knows the battle is far from over, but for the first time he feels the unity of purpose binding him to strangers who clamor for justice, and to his father whose unwavering support has transformed shame into strength. Marcus and David arrive at the towering glass headquarters of Horizon Airlines with determination etched on their faces as they step into the high-security lobby and exchange nods with their legal team. They are escorted through polished corridors past conference rooms filled with executives in crisp suits until they reach the boardroom, where a long table stretches between two rows of tense faces awaiting the confrontation. David stands and offers a polite nod of greeting that carries the weight of his authority, while Marcus remains seated, his posture straight and his gaze unwavering as he watches the executive, who ordered him off the flight, enter the room. The air hums with a mixture of fear and anticipation as the airline's general counsel opens the meeting by acknowledging Marcus's ordeal and handing control to David, who begins with a calm yet firm address. He recounts the sequence of events, from the unwarranted security alert to the public outcry and the detailed report his son compiled with technical evidence and personal testimony that reveals systemic flaws and human biases. David outlines each recommendation for algorithmic safeguards, diversity, training, and transparent appeal processes. He watches the board members' expressions shift from skepticism to concern when he finishes. Marcus stands and speaks with clarity born of lived experience, describing the sting of being judged by an automated system and by the fear reflected in a human attendant's eyes the moment he was flagged. His voice carries across the room as he challenges the airline to embrace accountability, not only as a corporate obligation but as a moral imperative to protect every traveler from similar humiliation. A hush falls before the chief operating officer clears his throat and offers a scripted apology that rings hollow until David interrupts to demand concrete commitments rather than empty words. The coup hesitates, then glances at the company president, a poised figure whose measured nod signals permission to negotiate. The president rises and speaks in a tone that balances regret with the promise of action, offering to establish a joint task force led by Marcus and external experts to redesign the security alert system and to fund scholarships for students impacted by profiling. David listens attentively, then presses further, insisting on a public disclosure of the task force's findings, a timeline for implementation, and reparations for victims of past errors. Marcus adds a final condition that future alerts carrying potential discrimination flags must trigger human review panels with oversight from civil rights advocates. The president consults with her advisors by exchanging quick glances, and then extends a hand across the table, offering a signed memorandum of understanding that incorporates each of their demands. As David and Marcus shake a hand, the room exhales collectively, as if a weight has lifted, and the path to redemption for the airline takes shape. Just when they believe the moment has reached its peak, the president pauses and presents an unexpected personal proposal, inviting Marcus to join their new advisory board as an executive member with voting rights on policy changes. She explains that his unique perspective as both a victim and a tech advocate would be invaluable in guiding the airline toward equitable security practices. Marcus feels a surge of surprise and pride at the gesture that transforms his personal crusade into a role of lasting influence. David's eyes shine with approval as he watches his son process the offer, his jaw set with protective pride, yet acknowledging the opportunity for systemic impact. The boardroom falls into a charged silence before Marcus nods his agreement, and the president smiles as she gestures for the memorandum to be signed. In that moment, the struggle that began with a miscentered name reaches a turning point, where corporate responsibility meets individual agency, and where a teenager's courage reshapes an industry's future. As they leave the boardroom, Marcus carries with him the knowledge that confrontation has led not only to apology but to partnership, and that the battles ahead will be fought together from a place of shared purpose and hope. Resolution and hope. The morning sun filters through the curtains of Marcus's room as he awakens to messages of support that poured in overnight, flooding his phone with words of encouragement and gratitude, reminding him of the movement he rises and finds his father waiting in the kitchen, coffee brewing, its rich aroma filling the air as David offers a proud smile and a nod of approval that says more than any words ever could. Together, they review the initial progress reports from the Joint Task Force, noting every milestone reached, algorithmic safeguards updated, staff training modules completed, and the first group of civil rights advocates invited to serve on the oversight panel. Marcus feels a swell of satisfaction at seeing his vision take shape beyond the pages of a report and into concrete action that will protect travelers for generations later. They host a press conference in the atrium of Horizon Airlines headquarters, the glass walls reflecting the bright afternoon sky as media crews gather and onlookers line the perimeter, eager to witness the next chapter of this story. Standing before the podium, Marcus speaks with calm authority, describing how a single error ignited a campaign for justice, reshaping corporate responsibility in the travel industry and honoring the dignity of every passenger. He announces a new scholarship fund for students studying ethics in technology, seeded by his father's foundation and matched by the airline, pledging to invest in tomorrow's leaders who will build fairer systems. Ripples through the crowd and flashes from cameras light the space like stars, illuminating the path toward a future where technology serves humanity rather than judging it. The days that follow, Marcus returns to campus, carrying the weight of his new role, balanced by the thrill of purpose driving him forward as he meets with professors, organizes workshops, and mentors peers on data ethics. He feels the warmth of friendships rekindled as classmates greet him with admiration and genuine smiles, unburdened by the fear that clouded his last journey home. Months later, Marcus once again steps onto flight 472, this time with a relaxed confidence as he settles into his seat, greeted by a familiar flight attendant whose nervousness has been replaced by respect and kindness. She offers a warm smile and thanks him for his work, reminding him that his courage inspired change well beyond the walls of a boardroom. As the engines roar to life and the plane ascends, Marcus glances out at the sky, the horizon stretching endlessly before him, and feels a profound sense of completion. What began as a moment of humiliation has evolved into a testament to resilience, justice, and the power one young man and his father wielded to rewrite the rules of an industry. And as the clouds drift past the window, Marcus closes his eyes, imagining all the journeys yet to come, guided by the promise that his story will continue to soar on wings of hope and dignity. The end.